So then we go on to our next speaker, Dr. Aparna Bhatnagar, who is going to be talking on filling the knowledge gap on fillers. And she's a senior ophthalmologist, trauma, orbit, and oculoplasty with a huge experience and working in Bill Ross Hospital and has innumerable awards and honors to her credit. So let's hear from her.
Thank you, Dr. Chitra, for the introduction. And thanks a lot for organizing such a fantastic webinar today. And thanks for making me a part of this. Am I audible? And
yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I will try to fill the knowledge gap on fillers in the stipulated time of 10 minutes, and probably advanced apologies if I overrun time limit. So our usual and useless fears and worries sometimes for youth and aging leads us to expectations, sometimes realistic and more so unexpected expectations. Having flawless skin, trying to imitate our role models, and we are always looking for something special that lasts longer and others can see the difference, but nobody knows. So the answers to all this would be fillers, which are actually called as liquid facelifts. And these are agents which work on facial surface volume augmentation. They have a function of contouring the face and also presenting emotional attributes to the face. They can be used either as standalone treatments or in combinations with other procedures like resurfacing, lasers, botulinum toxin. It's still not very sure whether which is an ideal filler, but manufacturers and companies are striving to compete and give best of best products to all of us. So wherever we are in our career and patient practice, we should be thankful and have gratitude to people who actually isolated these chemical substances, and now we have the luxury of using these in our private practice and in our practice. So the first in 1934, thanks to Mayer and Palmer, who isolated some chemical substance from cow's eye, and they named it uronic acid. But later they found that huge quantity of this sugar molecule was found in vitreous humor, hyla, which we call, and they named it hyaluronic acid. And it actually took 70 years for this sugar molecule to be approved by FDA as a dermal filler, which we use today. So if you see in the market, we have number of dermal fillers from hyaluronic acid to PLLAs to hydroxyapatite, and each one has its own pros and cons depending on how natural look they give and what is the longevity that they stay in inside the face. Thank you, and apologies for the glitch. So I'll cut short my presentation. I'll just directly go. Yeah, so talking about fillers, they are liquid facelifts, which are used for facial and surface augmentation, volume augmentation, and also they have the potential to change the emotional attribute of a patient. They can be used as a standalone treatment or in combination with other procedures like lasers or botulinum toxin. So we are still not very sure if we do have an ideal filler around, but the marketing companies and the manufacturers are in the race to give us the best. Wherever we are in our career and practice, we should not forget the people who actually made these molecules available to us, and we are using it as a luxury. So in 1934, biochemist Mayer and Palmer isolated an unknown chemical substance from cow's eyes, which they called as uronic acid. Further investigation found that this was a sugar molecule which was abundantly found in vitreous, and so they named it as hyaluronic acid. And it almost took around 69 to 70 years for hyaluronic acid to come and be approved as a dermal filler, which we use today. So dermal fillers are of various kinds, and depending on the longevity, the pros, how most natural looking, and what mechanism they have. So this ranges from hyaluronic acid to PLLA to PMMA, we are very well aware of. And fat transfer is the oldest skin augmenting material. It is the longest lasting type of filler, but it requires a invasive type of surgery. That is the down part. So if you talk about the armamentarium in aesthetic practice, my approach is more of a holistic approach, where one needs to have a thorough knowledge about the anatomy, the vasculature, and that is why, because we are dealing with danger zones and danger areas of the face, including the vasculature. So very thorough knowledge about the danger zones of the face should be there. Also, face mapping, surface markings is very important. And in past, we have had some fantastic workshops organized by Dr. Kasturi, Dr. Milind, Dr. Shubhra, Dr. Devraj, where they taught us the pearls of aesthetic practice using dermal fillers and the tips and tricks of getting a good aesthetic result. And I'm sure we should have more of these workshops in future. Coming to techniques, yes, there are more than 4 to 5 different techniques, and it depends on individual clinicians and surgeon. And also we should know the know-how as to which part of the face would receive which type of a technique. Also, there has been a controversy regarding use of needle versus cannula, which part of the face needle is better because it is sharp, straight, and it goes subdermal or till the bone level, versus cannula, which is more superficial but better transmissibility of dermal filler. So we should also concentrate on the areas to look out for. If it is just a small line, we need to lift it up, or a superficial or a deep wrinkle, which we are addressing to smoothen it out, or areas like perioral or lip area, which we want to pump it or plump it. So we have certain medical codes and equations for these features, like the MD codes, which we said. It's a system which provides specific injection guidelines. And it also gives us the location, the layer, the type of tool, the delivery system, and it tells us how much volume should be injected on each side to achieve optimal results. And this is regardless of patient age, gender, or ethnicity. So if you look at this face, it has coding systems generally by letters, alphabets, or numbers. For example, cheek is denoted by CK. So we have CK 1, 2, 3. Jawline, J, or tear troughs denoted as TT. So a sequential approach, if for such patients, we denoted for like an architectural principle of FCR, where F is foundation, C is contour, and R is refinement. So just like a house which we build, the main important part is foundation, or laying the foundation or the base, then contouring it with formation of floors, walls, etc. And finally beautifying it with refinement using an interior decor. So the same thing happens when we deal with patients. So suppose a patient comes to us with a made face sagginess. So just trying to correct the tear trough will not be the perfect solution. So we need to look at the foundation, which is addressing the lateral or the vertical lifting vectors, the contours starting from the temples, going up till the upper cheek, the mid cheek, mid face, chin, and jawline, and finally refining the entire face by extinguishing the lines and the folds. So this is something that we should keep in mind. And so as aging process, we can see that it does not occur uniformly in all areas of the face. Similarly, we need different fillers to be addressed for different parts of the face. So not one rule applies to all. And so the main question is, which filler do I need, or which filler should I use? So it depends on individualistic approach of the clinician giving that. Today we have a flood of numerable dermal fillers in the market, and sometimes it may be confusing because each of the company people come and try to boast their products on our heads. And if you see the future or the new products in markets, they are actually experimenting with each and every molecule. Like hyaluronic acid right now comes with antioxidants. They are even trying to combine two different dermal fillers like hydroxyapatite with hyaluronic acid, or they are carrying a CMC gel carrier along with the dermal filler. So coming to the indication, aesthetic indications, I think we'll have a lot of discussion in this webinar. So I'll just put in a small word about the functional viable non-surgical alternative to dermal filler, where they actually improve the quality of life. So for example, this patient, she's a TRO thyroid patient, and she did not warrant any orbital decompression, but she just wanted a little bit of lift for her lower lid. Plus, she had a mild amount of tear trough deformity also. So just putting a mild dose of dermal filler into her lower lid would help a little plumping and lifting up of the lower lid, which she actually wanted, and that improved the quality of life for her. Or in certain cases, very rare cases, we can combine dermal fillers post surgical deficit if we have any. Or what I've heard Dr. Kasturi also speak about in previous webinars is something called as a myomodulation, which is a non-invasive, and we kind of alter the muscle function by putting or injecting a dermal filler in between the tissue planes of the muscle. And also as combined procedure, if the patient has just pigmentation, appeals would do as our dermatologist colleagues do, followed by filler. Or if the patient has only skin sag, they can go for a RF followed by fillers. Or if the patient has wrinkles, as we talked about, Botox and fillers are the perfect combination. So like we look out for giving the best result to the patient, we should also look out for reducing the number of complications, because that is where the problem arises. The person, we are living in a consumer aggressive era, and we are on double sword edge, because here we are trying to give the patient the best, but sometimes the patients are not satisfied with the result. And also in India, especially beauticians, cosmetologists, and other unlicensed individuals, they illegally administer dermal fillers. And when the patient is dissatisfied and comes to us, he doesn't have a proper record. So in this case, we can land into trouble. So while going through literature review, found an article which says that MRI is the best reliable tool for such cases when you have a medical legal problem. Why MRI? Because dissatisfied patient and an MRI can be used to provide an objective evaluation of fullness, symmetry, and the level of injected dermal filler. Also, we can look for other problems like migration or abscess formation or granuloma. So interestingly, I found that various dermal fillers actually behave very differently on an MRI. Like for example, collagen, if you take an MRI post contrast or post gadolinium, it will behave as a hyperintense signal. At the same time, polyacrylamide, which will show not much hyperintensity, change in intensity pre and post contrast. At the same time, silicone dermal filler will look like a individual oil drops, which will be more prominent on fat suppression. So if we are not sure what the patient previously had which filler, an MRI will be a good tool. Similarly, for hyaluronic acid, if we take an MRI, it will show a very well-defined serpiginous margin. But if you take the MRI of the same patient, maybe after 4 to 6 months, the intensity will lower down on the same fat suppression, on the same post contrast medium, but it will also show vascularization, which is very, very typical of hyaluronic acid dermal filler. So medical legally, again, consent and documentation cannot be underemphasized. Have a proper bench time with the patient. Pre and post photographs, treatment photographs are a must with a separate consent. And also discuss the asymmetry with the patient before going for the treatment protocol. Cost is another factor which is very, very important in our country. And face sketch, we can go a proper documentation of face sketch, because sometimes what happens, the patient who had a dermal filler will come back to us with he needs to have something else like a radio frequency or a dermabrasion or a peeling done. So this will help the dermatologist or even us to kind of find out where the dermal fillers were given. So I have my own set of separate consents for medical photography for every patient and a separate for dermal filler treatment. And so finally, during this pandemic, no webinar talk can go without talking about corona and COVID infections and association with fillers. So many of our patients come to us with questions like, should I get fillers if I had a COVID infection? or should I get a COVID vaccine if I had a dermal filler, or which is better, Botox or filler after a vaccine and I had a COVID infection. So what to do, which is a safe vaccine if I already had a dermal filler, and so on and so forth. So while going through literature review, I came to find out that there were some reports published showing a kind of hypersensitivity reaction to dermal fillers post-COVID viral infection. So this one is from Dr. Debraj. He published this paper in 2021 May, and this shows a lady who had undergone a dermal filler in February 2020. She was quite happy, and then she got infected with COVID, and then 8 months later, she developed a mild erythematous edema reaction over the place where she had dermal filler. Again, 2-3 more case reports have been found, have been published, which show filler hypersensitivity post-COVID infection. So various cases have been published, but the striking point is each of the patient had edema induration over the areas where they had previously the dermal fillers, but it typically occurred 3 weeks to 4 weeks after they got the COVID infection. Not only COVID infection, fillers and hypersensitivity has also been found in post-COVID-19 vaccination. So first report came out in March 2021, where Moderna vaccine clinical trial, there were 2 participants who had previously hyaluronic acid facial fillers, and they experienced a little edema of the face and lips after they shot. And likewise, similarly, after a year or so, Pfizer came out with another paper showing that their patients also had similar hypersensitivity reaction to dermal filler post-vaccination. So all this important thing what to find, or what was noticed in these papers, was that the first shot of vaccination went uneventful. All the patients who had dermal fillers earlier, but the moment they took the second shot, they had this kind of a reaction, which actually subsided with or without any anti-inflammatory treatment. So the main question is, today we are still giving dermal fillers post vaccination or in this pandemic era. So do COVID-19 antigens or vaccine, do they really cause some hypersensitivity to dermal fillers? And the answer is yes. But the good thing is that they show a delayed type of hypersensitivity, which is mostly, it is only being reported with people who have had hyaluronic acid filler. It's a T lymphocyte mediated, occurring anywhere between 2 days to weeks or months, and it usually resolves within few days. And so the incidence rate has been also reported way below, like it's 0.3 to 1%. And lastly, if I have time, I would like to just mention something about dermal fillers and regulatory laws in India. What we know and what we need to know, I'm sure many of us will not be knowing. As busy practitioners, we don't have the time. And most of us are not actually familiar with the regulatory requirements for drug approval and procurement. And so the question comes, if we have an adverse event with our patient, where and how to report? Also, aggressive marketing by these manufacturers purchasing their FDA-approved device is also on the move. The main problem in India is online vendors, they sell products very cheap. The cost is a major issue in our country. And so substandard, dubious quality or expired products are in full form available online, and many patients come to us with their own online bought dermal fillers, and they force upon us to use their products. So also at the same time, very unfortunately, some physicians are providing on the social media their testimonials about the benefit of such fillers, which should not be there, which we should kind of rely on our own clinical effectiveness and experience and safety data rather than trust on a particular brand. So so surprisingly, in India, there was no medical device regulation before 2005. And the main drug controller general of India, that is the DCGI, came into existence only in 2013. And finally, it was merged with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in 2017, which they formed the medical device rule. And interestingly, all the dermal fillers available in India continue to be designated as medical devices and not aesthetic drugs. So if you see soft tissue fillers here in India under MDR 2017 come under class C of moderate to high risk aesthetic devices, medical devices, what they say. And hyaluronic acid filler is the only filler approved in India. Other fillers like Sculpta or hydroxyapatite products are not approved in India as a soft tissue filler. So we need to kind of
And we have 1
into,
minute remaining.
Yeah, I just finished. So the only important part we need to remember is there are some laws amendments done, and from this January 22, every medical device, including our soft tissue fillers, will now bear a unique device identifier number, which is basically a global trade item number. So even if you are importing a filler, it will have that UDI number and a tracking device, a tracking system, which we can track as a pre and post marketing. So the possibility of getting a dubious or a counterfeit or a substandard or expired product is going to be minimal. I hope so. But for our clinical purposes or on an individual level, if we find any adverse event, we can report that event directly to Sri Chitra Tirunal Trivandrum. Or instead of reporting it to the manufacturer or the vendor, because we are not very sure whether our complaints are carried forward to the company. So with this, I would like to wrap up. I would like to acknowledge my dermatologist colleague, Dr. Shweta Rahul in Chennai. And thank you so much. Be safe.
Paucity of time, we'll have to move on. But what little I understood was the choice of a product or filler depends on the amount of volume you want to inject, or maybe the thickness of the skin or the laxity of skin or age and all that. I did not get clarity on that part, like which would you choose for which kind of defect. Maybe in the subsequent talks, I would want to hear. But knowing that these changes are irreversible, do you have any kind of an antidote to deal with these?
Yeah, so antidote in the sense that there is a product called hyaluronidase, which suppose we have done a patient where we have overfilled that particular area. So we can kind of disintegrate that hyaluronic acid by using the hyaluronidase enzyme, which is, as you said, it could be an antidote. So the moment we feel that it has, we'll wait for some time for the filler to act, and with massage, many a times, even if we have overfilled, with massage, proper massaging, at that point, we can readdress the filling with the gap in the tissues. But after a point of time, suppose many patients, they are not satisfied, they see a little bump or a lump here and there, we can inject hyaluronidase to kind of disintegrate the collagen, the acid sugar molecule, and then we can re-massage it. And this is one specific antidote which we have.
Dr. Shubhra, anything to ask before we go on to our next speaker?
No, I think fillers is an elaborate topic, ma'am. We can have discussion on and on. I think for the paucity of the time,